Something weird is happening at the Merle Hay Mall. I'm not crazy. I cannot emphasize enough how much I'm not crazy. I am a hardworking guy in my mid-20 seconds. Not some schizophrenic who didn't take his medication. Not that there is anything wrong with people with some mental health issues. I'm getting off topic. Let me start over. I recently took a job as a manager of one of the units in the Merle Hay Mall in Des Moines. For those of you who don't know the city, it's one of those malls whose golden days are in the rearview mirror. It was on the last legs of its life a few years ago, but because of some newer additions, it seems to be hanging in there. The interior of the mall is quite dated, but nothing to write home about. Well, at least the upstairs is nothing to write home about. The place I work has a bowling alley downstairs, in the underground. In the 80 seconds, the mall was two-story with the upstairs being the ground floor and the downstairs being the basement. Lots of high-profile businesses, including a national fast food chain, used to occupy this basement area. But by the 2000 seconds, the mall had switched to an all-upstairs model, sans the bowling alley which they converted a chunk of the old units into. The rest of the underground mall was left mostly intact. And while mall workers occasionally would use this as a storage or a place to sneak down and take a quick break, it remained mostly unused. Now, I had always heard of the downstairs portion of the Merle Hay Mall since I moved to Des Moines. Urban exploration had always been of great interest to me, and an underground mall that looked like it was in the 90 seconds was right up my alley. It was my second day of working in the mall that I flexed my authority and went for a visit. It was bizarre. The lights didn't work as well as I would have hoped, so when they began to flicker as I walked down abandoned hallways, I wasn't doing myself any favors. I was psyching myself out before I even reached the cool part. When I finally reached the main courtyard, the atmosphere seemed to have shifted. The air wasn't stale. If it was stale, I would have understood it, but it felt like walking down the street with a thick fog layer, almost damp. The best way to describe it would be like I was stepping into something's mouth. While that was weird, the weirdest part was all of the mannequins everywhere. The entire downstairs mall was littered with mannequins. Way more than you'd expect. Whatever you are thinking, double it. They weren't just in storefronts and windows. They were around the mall as if they were shopping and going about their lives on a summer afternoon. Mom mannequins with children. A group of boys looking as if they were running through the store. Even a security guard leaning against one of the walls. It was honestly really cool. So cool I took a few pictures. I would have loved to post them with this post. But none of them had come out. All of them were black, no outlines or anything. I navigated through the mall until I found the strangest looking seat. It looked like those big Santa chairs every mall has. Except this one didn't have the normal greens and reds with Christmas ornaments. This one was almost completely black, and made out of some weirdly twisted wood. If I was a smarter man, I probably would have walked away, but in such a high traffic area, even in this specific section which wasn't seen often, I figured it was just some prop and that I should sit in it, get a gnarly new Facebook photo. I had lasted about 6 seconds in that chair before I got violently cold. I was in a hoodie at the time, as I usually am, and I generally run hot even without a jacket, but for whatever reason, the temperature dropped around 40 degrees when I sat in that chair. I knew it was cold because I could see my breath streak out when I exhaled. I had been looking at my phone, trying to open my camera so I would be able to take my selfie and get the hell out when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I wanted to scream, but no noise escaped my gaping mouth. The mannequins had all turned towards me. I wasn't imagining this. I knew some of those were facing different directions before, but when I became aware of their moments, they seemingly stopped moving. I looked back down at my phone, seeing if I had a cell signal so I could call one of the other managers down here. Of course, I didn't, and when I looked back up, all of the mannequins were several steps closer. I hadn't even noticed movement that time, but they were definitely closer to me than they were. The way I saw it was I had two options. I could either sprint past all of the mannequins back the way I came or continue down the unknown paths hoping to find an exit. Neither of these options particularly sounded like good options. But I ultimately decided on the beast that I knew instead of the one that I didn't. Being full of adrenaline made the run go a lot quicker than I thought, and I booked it as quickly as possible. I wanted to turn back and see if they were following me, but I was terrified about what answer I would get. I made it back in one piece. Well, mostly one piece. Having to work an entire shift after that didn't feel good though. My heart didn't stop racing until well after my shift ended. I should be so filled with dread that the thought of going back should be out of the question. But my curiosity is getting the better of me. I plan to go back because I want answers. But let this serve as a warning to you. Some weird things are going on at the Merle Hay Mall.